And so I told him, I said, you gotta go around the corner and take a right at the light. It's the only one we got, so you can't miss it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so when I seen him the other day, I said, if you're looking out your front window, you got to take a right at the end of the street, then hang a left when you get down to the creek.
No. I think Laura and Andy have slipped back into their rural Midwest selves.
What the heck you mean?
I got this. Oh, yeah? I tell you, I says, I don't know what kind of place he thinks this is.
I feel like you guys are talking about me, but I honestly don't know.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fine Laws Don't Judge Me, the podcast about the real life of lawyering.
On today's episode, some of us are returning to our small town roots.
And others are just quoting Fargo.
Coming up, we're taking a closer look at the challenges and triumphs of being a lawyer in a small market.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fine Laws Don't Judge Me. We've got the crew sort of back together here again. I'm Laura, and I'm here in the studio with Joe.
Hi, Laura. Good to be here.
Out of an abundance of caution, given the coronavirus outbreak, Andy and Allie are once again coming to us remotely. Hello, Allie.
Hello. I miss you guys.
Oh, that's so sweet. Hi, Andy.
I don't miss you guys.
I knew you were going to say that. I absolutely knew that that's what you were going to say.
I actually do miss you guys quite a lot,
Oh.
for the record.
We knew you did.
So on today's show, we are talking about what life is like for small town lawyers. And small town life does have several advantages over the big city: cleaner air, less traffic, and a cheaper cost of living. But that cheap life also means lower wages. And for many attorneys, that means making a living in Mayberry is close to impossible. While 20% of the U.S.'s population lives in rural areas, according to a 2014 South Dakota Law Review study, only 2% of attorneys ply their craft there. And as rural areas are getting older, so are the attorneys, and there are few new ones coming in to replace them. According to the Illinois Supreme Court, in Macoupin County, where I'm from, fewer than 5 new attorneys have taken up shop there in the last 5 years, and 16 counties across Illinois have added no attorneys in that time span. And it gets worse in other more rural states. According to the Nebraska Bar Association, 11 counties there have no lawyers whatsoever.
And a lot of people don't realize that small-town lawyers are often jacks of all trades, having to help clients from cradle to grave through a wide variety of legal issues. I mean, they definitely have interesting careers. So we wondered, what is life like for the small-town lawyer? Joining us as Don't Judge Me's inaugural guest is Chris Frank of Frank Law Office in Wilmar, Minnesota. A 2015 graduate of Ohio Northern University Pettit College of Law, Chris's primary focus is on business, estate, and tax planning, as well as real estate law. Chris and his father Cletus cover a broad range of legal issues for the community, from family law to agricultural law. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, Chris, why don't you just start by giving us a rundown of what the average week is like for you and your dad at your practice?
Laura was definitely right there when it's a jack of all trades kind of thing. So, I mean, we do everything from family law to estate planning and wills, real estate transactions, probates, business creation and transactions. Right now, my undergrad was an accounting degree from St. Cloud State University, and so I'm doing a lot of tax stuff right now too. So
Sure.
I even tried criminal when I first got out of law school and some child protection work, and that didn't fit with me. But there are a lot of people around my town that still do a lot of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, any given week, whatever the case you're working on, that's what you got that week or that day. So it's definitely a bit of everything.
Yeah. So, Chris, I want to know, do you have a life? Do you get to have a life as a small town lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I guess I'd like to kind of hear my opposite end from a city attorney too. I had the idea that the city attorneys are the ones working, like these 12 to 16-hour days and having to bust themselves just to get ahead in the city.
Yeah.
While out here in the rural areas, it's more like a 8 to 10-hour work day. Usually get to leave when the sun is still up, especially now. So I definitely have a life. I don't have as much stuff to do because we're out here in the rural area.
Sure.
But I mean, would you rather trade? Would you rather have a 5-minute commute and then have to drive 2 hours to the cities on weekends when you want to do something fun, or would you rather have an hour commute and then have things around you whenever you want to do something? It's a trade-off, give and a take. But
Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of commuting, do you often have to travel to clients, or do they often travel to you? Does that happen quite a bit?
Yep. So Wilmar, where I'm at, I'm in southwestern quadrant. We're the biggest city in the southwestern quadrant of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So while I am rural, I think my experience might still be a little bit better than some other really small town lawyers, because we still are drawing on a lot of the counties around us. Do bring in a lot of work to the Wilmar area. So a lot of times I am traveling to Swift, Lackaparl, Meeker counties out around us for work, and then sometimes our clients have to come all that way as well. But luckily here, as we advance in technology, a lot of that can be done over the internet. So I'd say we travel just as much as people travel to us.
Okay. And do you do a lot of sort of telecommuting or meeting with clients via video chat? I know a lot of doctors are doing that now. Are you starting to get into that as well?
We haven't got into that yet. But
okay.
When I first got here, our office was still going paper, and there wasn't a lot of technology, so I've been kind of slowly updating the office.
Okay.
So we're still not to any video chat. Some of the larger firms in the area, our firm is just me and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the larger firms, they'll have some of that technology. But another aspect of rural practice is probably that you're a little bit behind in technology, especially for the smaller and older shops are still catching up. Not a whole lot of case management software being used, things like that.
Sure. I have read a few things about how some in a lot of rural areas, attorneys are starting to use video chatting more just because it does add a little bit more of a personal element to it.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it all depends on what technology you have and what technology your clients have as well.
Yeah, in a lot of our community too, like we do a lot of agricultural real estate work too. So
Sure.
We deal with a lot of farmers that are, not to say that farmers aren't up on technology, as in they use a lot of their type of technology, but a lot of people that we deal with probably don't even have that capability to at least know what they're doing when they're video chatting back with us. So, but that might not be true either. They might, rural people aren't people that don't know how to use technology.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, we're none of us are gonna say that. I mean, I'm from a small town. Andy's from a small town. we definitely know that all too well.
Right.
I want to know, and you brought up the point though about maybe some technological gaps, as kind of rural areas get older, definitely at a much faster rate than cities and suburbs. Are you finding that you're getting a lot of younger clients still, or is that harder to try and get those types of clients in the door?
Yeah, I'd say we are. A lot of that is out here. I don't know, I'm sure it's the same in the cities, but there's a lot of family law work out here. So we're always sadly, we're getting a lot of young people dealing with that now too. But when it comes to a lot of the real estate stuff, there's still a lot of them as well, buying houses, things like that. There are still some young people starting to take over farms that we're dealing with, or starting small businesses. We do a lot of that kind of work too. I'd say there's a lot more old people, but the young people aren't non-existent as well.
Yeah.
Chris, something I think would be interesting to get your insight on as someone who is in a rural area fairly early on in your career, what do you think can be done to get more lawyers into rural areas?
That's a good question, and I know I read that article that you guys had that the ABA put out about the 20% of the population lives in rural areas, only 2% of the lawyers. And a couple of lawyers I've spoken to around our area have actually said that they're looking for attorneys as well to try to come out here. And that greater Minnesota is kind of looking for more attorneys to come out this way because everyone wants to be in the city so bad.
Yeah.
I recognize that that's probably not true everywhere, especially in the really small counties. And like the article had that area in Nebraska where there's 11 counties without even an office. So I don't know. I mean, eventually here, as the older generation starts to retire, if they are trapped in a small town and have nobody to sell your business to, or you're one of only a couple offices and the other office doesn't feel the need to purchase your client list from you because they've got enough of their own clients, you know, that's going to present a problem for them. They've worked hard to build this office and all this goodwill, and now they're not going to have anyone to purchase it from them. So, I mean, eventually there's got to be some sort of network to try to bring in some younger attorneys that are going to be willing to purchase that office from you. It's kind of like a legacy or like an apprentice program or something like that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting incentive.
Yeah, for me, I would give up my commute in a heartbeat. Except I didn't go to law school. So.
Yeah, Andy's the non-attorney among us.
Right. I was just going to touch on that. I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to drive from home to work, and you know, I can get up at 7:30, be showered and in a suit, and at the office before 8. So
yeah, that does sound pretty great.
Oh, that sounds so good.
I go home for lunch. I eat at home.
Yeah.
If I ever have lunch.
Oh, I know. I remember my dad used to come home for his lunch break every day.
Oh, my dad did too. Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. Fantastic.
Andy, did you have any other questions for Chris?
Yeah. I wanted to know a little bit about breaking in too. You know, I think it's probably unfair to say that you had an unfair advantage, but your father already had the practice established in Wilmar. And so if that wasn't there, do you think you would have become a lawyer in the Twin Cities or Duluth or Rochester or Sioux Falls or something like that? Or do you think you still would have gone back to the hometown?
It's a good question. And, you know, that hurdle of getting out of school and getting that first job, I definitely would probably call that an unfair advantage. I mean, I walked into it, and now it's hard to leave this too, because I know that eventually I probably can take over a practice, and that's definitely a tempting thing. But I've definitely had my moments where, you know, especially when I was younger and first out, where I just didn't know if I wanted to be in this small of a town, and sometimes I wished I was in the cities or a different city, or where would I have been when I first got out too. I looked in other places besides where I'm at now, and I would have been just applying everywhere. So it would have been wherever the opportunity popped up. I definitely wasn't. I'm not one of those people where I had to be in a city, obviously, because I'm in Wilmar right now. But I don't have that mindset where I need to be in a big city somewhere, like I think a lot of our generation has. Which I'm hoping another thing that might push lawyers out is eventually I think that trend is going to start to slow down or reverse, and people are going to have to start pushing out of the city a bit. And I think technology is really going to help that too. I think a lot of tech firms are starting to set up their headquarters in kind of no man's land because they know that they can do everything remotely. So,
yeah, operating costs are lower and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today, Chris. We're going to give you the last word. Give you the chance to give the sales pitch to all the lawyers listening out there for why the grass is greener in Wilmar, Minnesota, and all the places out there like that.
Well, we've touched on a few. There's no real commute. I've always thought the hours are better. You could maybe have on a city attorney to discuss whether their hours are worse than ours, but I believe it's more of a normal work day. Easier to interact with the same people. You know, a lot of the people you're going to be working with are that small community of people. A small town like this has an actual community rather than just a huge population, so you're not running into new people every time. I know some attorneys I've met in the city say you could work almost your entire life and you might not run into the same attorney on other cases. So here it's definitely different. You're working with the same attorneys all the time. You're working with the same people. You definitely build a sense of community. So if you want to come out here, I say do it. If you don't, that helps me out too, because then there's less competition.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Well, turning back from small town life to the big city, Andy has another review for us of the series For Life this time, correct?
That's right, Laura. I'm back for another edition of Thumbs Down, where I watch the legal procedural TV shows and movies so that you don't have to. This week we'll be discussing ABC's newest legal drama, For Life.
I used to be just like you. I had a wife I loved. I had a family and a home. But then something happened.
I've been walking through this storm myself.
I, Aaron Wallace, am serving a life sentence for something I didn't do. Except today, for the first time, I've got a way to fight back.
Our tale this time centers around Aaron Wallace, who is serving a life sentence for allegedly running a drug ring out of his nightclub, only he was railroaded by the DA. So Aaron spends 9 long years learning how to become a paralegal and then ultimately pass the bar. His plan? Represent other inmates in court so he can slowly chip away at the Bronx DA's credibility to aid in his appeal and release.
Powers that be came down on me. So here I am now, 9 years later. For the first time, back in the same courthouse where they came to take my life away. Except today, no matter what anybody thinks about me, about who I am and how I got here, today, I've got a way to fight back. And you can be damn sure that's what I'm going to do.
Ooh.
As we learn more about the crooked Bronx DA and his ADA, who are absolutely disgusted and shocked that they could be across from Aaron in the courtroom, we find out that Aaron passed the Vermont bar. He then used reciprocity to have his whatever the hell you guys call it,
It's a license, Andy.
What is
license.
It's a license.
Yeah,
You don't even know what we have.
Sure, to have his license recognized in New York. And Aaron benefited from a new warden who was interested in enacting some pro-prisoner reforms. So she was all about letting him out to practice law.
Okay.
So in our first episode, we have Aaron representing a fellow inmate seeking a retrial on a statutory rape and attempted murder conviction. This poor guy swears he didn't buy his girlfriend the oxy that she used to attempt suicide, but his ex said that he did. In an extremely convoluted sequence of events that Aaron used to win the case, Aaron's ex-wife smuggles paper into the prison. Aaron then gets a prison Nazi to fake the girlfriend's handwriting, who then bakes the paper to erase any prints.
What?
Aaron then also types up a fake note from a, quote, anonymous cop, quote, telling Aaron about this evidence he found. Aaron then gets the girlfriend to admit on the stand that the note isn't real and that she destroyed the original at the behest of her rich, horrible parents.
Oh my God, I have so many questions. I'm so lost.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on, but this actually sounds interesting. I'm intrigued.
I am pretty sure that he may have definitely broken some prison rules to win this case.
Well,
I can't
and
be sure.
some evidentiary rules as well.
But I feel like he might deserve some more time behind bars for this.
Yeah.
The DA is so disgusted with Aaron winning because this is going to potentially derail his bid for New York Attorney General. And so here we're going to hear from the DA. I don't remember his name, and I don't care to.
You drop everything else on your plate and do not even contemplate losing this case.
So they do lose. So they do lose the case, but not before they really screwed with poor Aaron Wallace here. Once they even had the prison bus be intentionally late to court by 2 hours so that he and his client would miss the court date. And the asshole judge has the temerity to blame it on Aaron and his fellow inmate for being late.
Oh my gosh,
Last
wild.
I checked, prisoners do not drive themselves off campus to court.
No. What are we even talking about anymore?
I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah.
But it did lead to the TV special of the judge threatening to hold him in contempt.
Always.
Sure.
Always.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it just made me so happy that we had a contempt threat halfway into the pilot of the show. In the second episode, we see a lot more maneuvering to keep Aaron behind bars. So there isn't much bad legal drama in it beyond Aaron getting scolded by a judge for filing a writ of mandamus to compel release of his original case file. A, quote, blunt instrument at this point. Isn't it, Mr. Wallace? Yes, it is, Judge. Why, yes, it is. I say, not completely sure that I understand why it's a blunt instrument.
That's getting in the weeds a little bit. I don't think I've ever heard a legal show refer to a writ of mandamus before.
I really wanted you to say it in the Southern drawl like last review,
Oh, like Jimmy Smith's? Oh,
Jimmy
yeah.
Smith style.
That would have been so... Yeah, can you give us that, Andy?
We're in New York now, Allie,
Dang it.
unfortunately. This show is loosely based on the life of Isaac Wright Jr., who served as a prison paralegal and is credited with help reducing the sentences or overturn convictions of over 20 inmates. He did not, however, represent other inmates in court. I'm pretty sure that still has not happened. But he is now free himself and raining righteous blows down on the corrupt system. And I've also found he likes to tweet in all caps.
Lovely.
And is an executive producer, it looks like, on the show.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he is.
Now, wow. I don't even know where to start with all this.
Yeah, as is Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. You got to use the full name when it's it's a legit
You're right.
endeavor.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's an admirable endeavor, I guess, but the way they're doing it makes no sense as far as the legal system and how it works.
I am intrigued, though. I want to see this show, actually.
Yeah.
I might check it out.
But it actually, unlike the last one, which I wanted to stay as far away from as possible, I think this one is worth checking out. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I agree. And given the name of this segment, I still got to give For Life a thumbs down. But I'd call this one more of a thumbs down than a thumbs down.
High praise from Andy there, folks. That is about as good as you can get.
It's true.
Yeah, if you listen to our first episode, I found this a far more enjoyable experience than I did the totally irredeemable Bluff City Law. The performances are actually pretty good. The writing is still just pretty not good. It is overly complex. And then also after you watch prison shows like Orange is the New Black or Oz, it's pretty hard to go to a sanitized network version. These prison Nazis are not nearly as scary.
Yeah,
So
that is a good point.
What I'm saying is, during your self-quarantine, this one is good for forgetting about the world for a little bit. Whereas Bluff City Law would have you begging for the comfort of the latest breaking news.
Thank you so much, Andy, for watching this stuff so that we don't have to.
I live to serve.
And with that, we're going to throw it over to Joe, who has a segment on an interesting line of cases that has been coming out.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I had to bring this up just because I've been following this more closely than it deserves, really. But it's an interesting case, and it's good for legal nerds like me. So I just wanted to bring it up. So there's a man in Kansas who is in a tough custody dispute. Not too unusual. But what is unusual is that he decided to settle this dispute he's having with his wife's attorney, really, by requesting a trial by combat.
Oh, my God.
Now, this is a bad idea, and it's a good example of why you don't represent yourself, right, folks? This is not a good idea. Fine law does not condone this kind of behavior. But yeah, what he did was he petitioned the court and he asked for 12 weeks so that he could forge or secure some katana swords.
Oh,
now,
my God.
For non-nerds out there, katanas are these famous Japanese medieval weapons that have become popular in certain circles and in comics. So yeah, it's
also what Leonardo used in the Ninja Turtles.
That is true.
What a fantastic throwback, Andy. I love it.
I want pizza now.
So obviously, demonstrating to a judge the desire for violence with medieval weaponry is not the best way to get more time with your children.
Right.
I do want to throw in here, though, I don't think he was serious. He's trying to make a point. He's not actually looking to fight anyone. And the reason I bring this up isn't to pick on anyone. The guy's obviously going through some things, and I don't want to minimize the effect something like this could have on his ex-wife and his children. So no, I find it interesting because he got the idea from a lawyer in New York who did the same thing. In 2016, a lawyer named Richard Luthman was sued by opposing counsel for allegedly advising a client to fraudulently transfer funds. So Luthman was very upset, motioned the court to, and I quote, permit the undersigned to dispatch plaintiffs and their counsel to the divine providence of the maker for him to exact his divine judgment once the undersigned has released the souls of the plaintiffs and their counsel from their corporeal bodies personally and or by way of a champion. I assume that Luthman then went on to participate in an epic game of Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't know that for a fact.
Oh, wow.
But lawyers, you still have to use words like corporeal, too.
Oh, it's so fun.
After all the money we paid to learn words like corporeal, we have to use them.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that is ridiculous on so many levels.
But, he's got an interesting point. So trial by combat was allowed under British common law until 1819. So, it's this old tradition. I think sometimes people think that it happened all the time, kind of in medieval times, but really it's a tradition from Germanic tribes who would allow trial by combat in situations in which there was not a lot of evidence. And it kind of made its way into British common law.
I have questions, Joe. There are weird laws on the books. Does this exist in these locations where these two people live? Is that why they think, or is it just the historic nature of that law?
Yeah, so the argument is that it's never been specifically prohibited under the U.S. Constitution.
Fantastic.
Or under state constitutions.
Neither has voting for gummy bears. So we know
Yeah. So Luthman is just arguing that since it's never been outlawed. I mean, it's true because when the U.S. adopted British common law in, 1790...
Whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
1774, I think is the answer. They allowed duels at the time, and there's nothing in the Constitution that came later that specifically prohibited duels. So his argument is that, hey, when the Constitution was drafted, this was an okay thing to do, even though nobody really did do it. They had duels, but there were no officially sanctioned trial by combats, really, and so it wasn't mentioned in the Constitution. But it's a decent legal argument. It's crazy and it takes a lot of moxie to do it.
Yeah.
But it's actually it's original.
It's original for sure.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it's decent or not, I don't know.
Well, it's hard to say of anything other than, well, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of a complicated.
Of course it's ludicrous to imagine a judge actually doing this. I think the point from the attorney's perspective was just to draw attention to it. He was obviously upset with the opposing party and he was trying to make a point. And then, I kind of feel bad for this guy who's representing himself in Kansas because he got this idea from the lawyer who did it for a specific purpose. And then he, tried to do the same thing and make the same point. And, it was not a good idea. It completely backfired. Now he's got to undergo psychological evaluations. And now it's kind of a whole thing with his custody dispute. So that part is a little bit, not so fun. But it is an interesting legal argument, and it's something that I've been kind of watching closely, and I'll see how it develops, and I'll be interested. But I definitely, for anybody out there, this is not a good argument to make. It's a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Think twice.
Don't do it yourself. Yeah, like it's funny, but think about it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, what's
So
a
I,
mistake? Yeah.
yeah. So I had to bring that up, and I had to give that off my chest. So that's a public service announcement from me to you. So thank you for giving me the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Joe.
All right.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Fine Laws Don't Judge Me. Check the show notes for other related content, and if you have some time to spare, do us a favor and rate and review our show wherever you listen to podcasts. For more content on the real life of lawyering, visit our legal professionals site at lp.finelaw.com.